We've spoken to you many times about being okay with walking parts of the course. There are times when the terrain or the traffic are going to force many of us off our bikes and onto our feet. But don't fret, most of this course is a pedaling course. So what you clip into for this pedaling course is very important. It's why I choose Shimano MTB pedals for one of my points of contact on the bike.
Yeah, it's really hard to argue with Shimano's reputation in this area of bicycle componentry. The SPD mountain bike pedal is a mainstay, a go-to for millions of mountain bikers. The cleats are so well thought of that many other pedal companies simply license that cleat idea from Shimano and incorporate it into their pedals. But we say stick with the original when it comes to pedals, that is Shimano pedals and cleats.
I think they've been around for 20 years, haven't they?
I think you're right, yeah. I mean, as long as I can remember mountain biking, it seems like they've been around.
It is the definition of a tried and true pedal. And for me, I take the XTR version of that pedal. It's light, it's very reliable, and when I do need to get off, it's very easy to clip back into. I can find replacement cleats anywhere, and most of all, I can trust them. Year in, year out at Leadville, on my local trails everywhere. Heaven knows I have had my share of rock strikes. I mean, my pedals tell the tale, but they continue to perform flawlessly.
The set I love are the trail models. Shimano has them in both XT and XTR. The trail models have a little more platform underfoot. They are perfect if you're wearing a shoe with a little more flex than Fatty likes to run, but I like the little flexible shoe, and that's not a bad strategy actually to go with. Go for like a pair of Shimano shoes designed for walking and then pair them with the XT or XTR trail pedals. Yeah, they're a little heavier, the trail pedals, but they feel really good underfoot, like really solid platform, and you get all the other benefits Fatty mentioned.
Yep, and at Leadville, every piece of equipment is important, and pedals are about as important as it gets. To see the entire pedal lineup from Shimano, go to bike.shimano.com. And thanks, as always, to Shimano for being the title sponsor of this show.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race, presented by Shimano. Find them at bike.shimano.com. We're now season 5, episode 14 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest, hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country. I'm Michael Houghton, Heidi the Most.
And I'm Fatty. We are off Columbine now, and we are coming down through Twin Lakes into the alternate feed zone. Coming up is that new section of the course again that we saw outbound. It'll roll slower this direction, and we're going to tell you where.
We are also wading into a topic we have avoided for 4.5 seasons, and that is tires. Now, maybe you saw our survey up on the participants page. We'll look at the results, plus hear from some experts on picking tires, running inserts, and testing for speed.
Man, it is like we are going to be talking about religion and politics in this episode. There are some real feelings that come into this. Hadi, probably as well as or better than just about anyone else, I'm a bit of a procrastinator.
Yeah, if there were a procrastinator world championship, I'd be in the finals with you.
Oh, well, it's good that we're both there. But I imagine there are people who are like me, like you, who tend to wait until a deadline is getting really close, where you can see that thing coming into the tunnel and the lights are getting bright. And this is a message for them. If you plan to have your own kit made for you and your team or your friends and your family, I have good news and some bad news. The bad news is the race is now less than 2 months away.
All right, so give us the good news here.
The good news is if you move fast before June 24th, it is not too late to get your own custom kit designed by DNA Cycling, get the pattern created, have the kits created in Italy, and shipped back to you in time for the race.
Oh, that's great. I thought the deadline had come and gone.
I did too. But it seems like it should have come and gone for the amount of work that has to happen between now and then. But that's kind of the magic of DNA Cycling. Since they do everything in creating a kit from design to fulfillment, they can move a lot faster than most of the other custom kit manufacturers.
Okay, but by the time this episode comes out, there will just be a few days until June 24th. So believe us when we say don't delay. You can get your kits fast and in time for Leadville by going to dnacycling.com and clicking Start Custom.
Yeah, and one last thing on that. If you'd like to get custom t-shirts made for your crew, DNA Cycling can help with that too. And we are, in fact, working on some custom t-shirts of our own that we think that our listeners might be very interested in. But that is a story we'll tell next episode.
Right, and for this episode, it's last call for getting your custom kit in motion in time for the starting line at 6th and Harrison. Head to dnacycling.com, click Custom, and be sure to let them know the Leadville podcast sent you.
Every part of this course kicks you in the teeth.
This is the course. We are talking you through what you need to do to have the best possible day on the second Saturday in August, from the shotgun blast to the moment you roll up the red carpet, and the 105 miles in between.
Last time on the course, we started at the turnaround at the top of Columbine and walked you, or actually rode you through the 7 miles that gets you to Twin Lakes Dam Alternate Aid Station. Today, we're headed from the alternate aid station to the single-track bypass from mile 59 at 9,500 feet to mile 68.3 at 9,350. That's 9 miles and a net descent of about 150 feet.
Yeah, so it feels like, if you were to think of it as just a single decline, that you're just sort of rolling downhill, but you are not. There's going to be some fast, mostly flat miles, but you are also going to be doing some hard climbing and some fast washboardy descending in this 9 miles. So it's strategic, like all of the race, and you want to pay attention.
Here's our ongoing message, by the way, folks. Whether or not you use the Twin Lakes Alternate Aid Station, use the couple miles after Twin Lakes Alternate, this new private property workaround area, to do what?
To fuel, to hydrate.
To fuel and hydrate. That's right. The thing we've said over and over in the course. The course is not only a description of the course, it's an instruction manual that you must fuel and hydrate every chance you have. Of course, these are straightforward, flattish miles, and you will be climbing hard again as soon as you get through Twin Lakes Alternate. So use this opportunity to do what?
Yeah, you are going. We're not talking about the Twin Lakes Alternate. We're talking about the Twin Lakes proper aid station in this case. But you are going to want to get your legs going again, eat something, drink something, and it is going to feel good to sort of start spinning, start applying some pressure again, because your legs have cooled down a bit.
At mile 61, you'll make a right to rejoin the course, as it was before the private property reroute. And there's a grunt of a climb here on a rocky Jeep road for a couple hundred feet that's going to remind you that you are, what? In a mountain bike race. Yes, this is a mountain bike race, even though you've kind of been on some dirt roads and even a bit of pavement. You are in a mountain bike race, and this rocky Jeep trail is there to prove it to you.
Yeah, it is going to hurt a little bit. You are going to start feeling every climb for the rest of the race. This doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It just means that you are, in fact, racing the Leadville 100. So you're then going to, after cresting over this, you're going to descend on rocky Jeep double track. Make sure you pick your line carefully, because some of these embedded rocks can definitely start pinballing you off the course. You don't want to do that, but you are going to descend quickly into the Twin Lake Dam proper aid station. And it is time to wave to the fans, because you are back at the big party.
Yeah, you'll probably hear them before you see them. All the people at Twin Lakes Dam, it really is a party there. They've been there a while, and they just love seeing every racer come through and show your appreciation back for them, too. They've been standing around, some of them in their goofy costumes, some of them out in the sun. So, have a look, have a wave. If you need to stop, if this is your stop point, make sure you find your crew and do that. And, you'll be amazed at the morale boost that you get as you're rolling through this area.
Yeah, you really do. I always love coming through every single one of the aid stations, but the Twin Lakes Dam aid station is something special. It is unlike any other mountain bike aid station I've ever been through. So, after you get through that, after you finish crossing the dam, there are a couple of cement barriers that have been placed. You have to weave your way around them, and the gravel here for just for and a 50, 60 feet is very loose and deep, and it is real easy to wash out. So, watch your front wheel, get through that, and then you are going to make a quick left onto a short section of single track that connects the dam road into the sort of pre-Twin Lake Dam crew dirt road. If you're pretty far forward in the race, you could have racers coming at you in the other direction who are still outbound. I'm pretty sure that they say outbound has right, or the outbound has right of way. Or no, is it in? No, yeah, I'm wrong.
I would think it would be, I don't know, because I'm never fast enough to find out, I guess.
I'm pretty sure that the marshals are going to make sure, and control traffic. I think inbound might have the right of way.
Right.
But usually the fact is the two of you can work around each other. Use the overarching rule. Be nice. Everyone is trying to do the same thing, which is have an amazing day and get to that red carpet.
Anyway, after that soft section, Fatty described in the little ribbon of single track, you're going to pop out and you're going to be into another corridor of race crew, a lot of vans, a lot of people. So this is like the second half of the Twin Lakes Dam feeding area. Watch for racers, of course, re-entering the race as well, as they may be stopped here to pick up a feed, and they're going to jettison right back out, possibly in front of you as you're trying to just make time through here. Give way to a quick 10 steep connector road. What's coming up next is as you exit this area, the second area of feeders at Twin Lakes Dam, you're going to make a slight right and jump onto a quick, short, 10-foot steep connector, a little section of single track that'll pop you out onto a road. A traffic cop should be right there to help you cross the road. As this is Highway 82, by the way, you're going to cross the road and start heading up in a second here on pavement.
Yeah, up is the key word here. It is time to climb again. And you're going to be on pavement. And this is, at least in my memory, a really tough one. The day, if it's going to be warm, and it frequently is, this is where you're going to really start feeling it. I don't know if it's that the heat is radiating up, from the black tarmac, or the fact that you are completely exposed and the sun is right on top of you and you're in the heat of the day. But I always feel it here, Hottie. Also, it's the first sustained climb you've had since Columbine, right? And you are going to be noticing now how tired your legs are. I think isn't this the place where you and I actually ran across each other one year when both of us were riding it? And I remember both of us were suffering at the moment. I think I was eating a gel. I think you were eating like some kind of pastry or something.
That's a good one. I don't recall that. I do recall meeting you up on Powerline headed in one bound. I don't recall this, but again, we're all brain dumb.
Our memories are tricky.
Talking about 10,000 feet, right? Who can think? Who can remember anything?
Oh, it's true. It might have been you. It might have been Sean. I'm now thinking, it might have been Sean that I came across there. Anyway, it's always fun to run across someone you know. If you see someone in a Leadville podcast jersey, please give me a push just for a second. Appreciate it. So, honestly, for years and years, it was this, 1.5 mile, 300 feet of climbing. It's not that big of a deal, you wouldn't think, but it was this stupid climb that I would self-destruct on every year because it was here that a dumb decision I had made earlier in the race always manifested. That is, because I, like a lot of racers, hate eating when I'm on the Columbine climb where the altitude is just getting to you, I'm paying the piper now, right? And for the rest of the race, because fueling I didn't do 20 miles ago is now coming to bite me in the butt. You're out of fuel. Once I figured that out, this climb stopped being, stopped feeling like a wall and became what it is, 1.5 miles, 300 feet of climbing.
Once this hill is over, we'll call it Fatty's Bonk Hill. Once this thing is over, you're going to crest at the top here of the pavement. You see some people out at the top here. I think they're locals. I don't know. They're spectating. They're always there, cheering, usually sitting down in their chairs. They don't do feeds. They actually, technically, by the rules, are not supposed to give out feeds here, like this is not supposed to be a stop area. So if you're thinking about putting a crew here, don't. You could run into some issues. But if some citizen, somebody just who happens to be wants to hand you something, you can go ahead and take it and keep on going. And then you'll be back on dirt. It's a downhill, but it's washboardy, right? So pay attention, obviously. Loosen, you want to, go with the heavy hands, or rather the other way around, light hands, heavy feet. Try to, get your weight over your feet and loosen your grip as you can, so you don't just chatter all the way up your arms and into your shoulders. And this is also another great spot to work with people if you can find someone who is in a similar state as you.
Yeah, and that can be a real trick. I have had people who go flying by me because they've, sort of hit their steady state, and, they are the power riders who can just go right by you. I have caught up to people who, we were at the same point in the race right then, but they are bonking and I'm feeling okay. It's finding someone who is, more or less gone the speed you have and has the same amount of power you do right now is difficult, but it is worth it if you can do it, because you are going to be connecting up in the next time that we talk about the course for some pavement where having a pace line can really make a difference. You won't be there for long, but it is flattish pavement, and working together, as always, can, earn you a few calories of effort and a few seconds on your time. And sometimes that's all it takes.
And we'll cover from here to the pipeline aid station next time on the course. All right, many of you saw and participated in our tire and insert survey on the participants page. And in this episode, we're going to dare to take on this topic. Tires, in particular, are a complex and much debated subject when it comes to all kinds of riding, the Leadville 100 included. Fatty, we have certainly seen opinions on this subject evolve over the years. When I first lined it up at Leadville, I was on S-Works Fast Track 2.0 on the front and an S-Works Renegade 1.95 on the rear. Thankfully, I was on 29ers, but that's pretty narrow stuff. Now, how I didn't flat with the setup is pretty amazing, but then again, not. I was not an aggressive rider back then and took great care to avoid the hazards. After big buckling on that setup, I went on to something wider and a little tougher, but I did get my one and only flat when I went wider and tougher. So, who knows what's best?
Yeah, there's no setup in the world that is going to protect you from every possible flat. We're just looking for something that is a balance between fast and safe, right? Like you, I raced on the S-Works Fast Tracks for a number of years until actually while I was in Leadville one year, a pro racer I have a lot of respect for took me aside and said I was just begging for a blowout. And that day I went and got myself some fast track controls, right? A little bit tougher of a tire with the same kind of tread. And I was nervous about racing with those, a tire that I was new to, but I figured it was close enough that I wasn't too nervous. I raced with those for a number of years. And then I think probably, 4 years ago, I'm going to say, I moved over to the Maxxis Ardent Race, primarily because that is an excellent tire for what I ride day to day in the trails where I live. It's a good fit to my hometown. And I'm pretty superstitious about tires in general. I will freely admit that there is a component of, I don't want to fool with something that works. And I'm also a big believer in the whole nothing new on race day maxim.
Well, we hope to move beyond the superstitions here with this segment and, get into exactly what is the right choice. We want to throw a blanket out there. What could be the right choices for Leadville in particular? And for help on that, we have 3 interviews we're going to get to. But first, let's get to part of that survey we put out there on the participants page, and we'll start with the tire portion. We asked people what they're going to ride and what size they plan to ride. No surprise that most said they will be on Maxxis tires. More than 50% said they'd be rolling on Maxxis. And of those, 41% said they would be on the Icons. That's kind of the do-all XC tire by Maxxis. It's not their fastest, but it's not the grippiest thing they offer out. It's right in the middle there. Continental Specialized, Vittoria, Schwalbe, and Kenda were the others that showed up on the survey, but none got close to Maxxis. Like, I think the biggest number we had was maybe 10% were with one of those other brands. As far as sizing goes, a little more than half said they would run 2.2 or 2.25s. We kind of lump those into the same category. If you said 2.25, you're 2.2. If you said 2.2, obviously you're 2.2. Next was 2.3 or 2.35, as some of the Maxxis are. And we did get 2 votes for 2.0. I guess that's my width. And 1 out of 6 said they would run kind of a mixed set, like a 2.3 front or 2.2 rear.
Yeah, the 2.3 front, 2.2 rear seems like a good move to me. That is something that I am considering very heavily as I think about single speeding this year. But unfortunately, the survey doesn't really answer the question a lot of people have, which is, how do I choose? Many of these manufacturers have 2, 3, even 4 cross-country tires. So how do you know which one to use? Let's go ahead and check in with the guy we leaned on last year for this kind of answer, Payson McKelvin.
We're back with Payson McKelvin. Payson, it was bad enough we put you through, I think, 2 shows last year. And so we're going to milk you for more, if you don't mind.
No, it's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, more information from Payson. I think we did like 2 hours of listener questions with you leading up to the 2021 event. You're a Maxxis athlete. Maxxis, like a lot of tire companies, has a lot of choices you could go to. So what goes into that choice as you look at an event like Leadville or any event, and how you pick one of their tires?
So when it comes to cross-country or marathon-style races, I actually pick from a fairly narrow selection of tread patterns, but what changes is the width, the compound, all that sort of thing. So those are kind of subtle differences that can make a big difference. I would say the 2 tires that I most frequently reach for in dry conditions are the Maxxis Aspen and the Recon Race. Those are both fast-rolling, light tires, and they come in a handful of different compound options. And by compound, I mean the thread count, and that typically the significance of thread count is the higher the thread count, the faster rolling the tire is, but you sacrifice a little bit of durability. So most mountain bike tires are 60 or 120 TPI. Maxxis actually gives their pros a special 170 TPI option that I use sometimes. If it's going to be a very rocky race where puncturing is a big issue, then I'll run the 60 TPI. For something like Leadville, I reach for the 120 because I'm most interested in speed, suppleness, and weight, obviously. And then the other consideration, like I said, is width. More and more, I'm running a 2.4. But for Leadville, I'll probably stick with the 2.25, just because there's so much road. By road, I mean, in my mind, that also means dirt road. So as long as I can get down power line cleanly, without any punctures, all that sort of thing, the 2.25 is the ticket for me there. And in the past and moving forward, I'll reach for that Aspen because it's just kind of the fastest rolling tire. Okay, so for Payson, he skinnies up and goes with the higher TPI for Leadville. But remember, he's a pro who has different skills and goals. We'll have more from Payson when we get into tire inserts. Now, Payson has a distinct advantage over the rest of us. He is sponsored, so he can try as many Maxxis tires as he likes, and he rides for a living, so at least he can get a feel for what is faster tire to tire. The rest of us, not so much.
Yeah, that's why we turn to another great resource in Josh Portner. In addition to running Silka, Josh is a consultant to pro tour teams and helps them identify the right tire for the conditions they're racing in. Josh has done a lot of work at Paris-Roubaix, which might as well be a mountain bike race. We work with Josh on the Marginal Gains podcast, so we got him to come on this show to tell us about how we can identify a fast tire.
All right, Josh. Well, thanks for coming over to the mountain bike side and being on the Leadville Trail 100 Mountain Bike podcast. A lot of folks know you for CDA and aerodynamics. You're also great with tires and have done a lot of experimenting and testing in this area with pro teams, specifically in Europe. We want to corner you here on the trail real quick because, you know, a lot of our listeners get down to near a few weeks before race day and they're trying to decide between one tire or the other. They're pretty much, have narrowed down a large field of knobby tires to maybe a couple of them. So what we want to try to do is help them out maybe in testing these tires and getting, some idea what might be faster over the other. Not so much concerned about grip. We'll let them focus more on grip, about what kind of knobby pattern they're choosing, but let's try to help them figure out what tire might be their fastest choice. So, and this is obviously true for the athlete who has no sponsor commitment. Like the field of tires is wide open to them. They can pick what they want. So how would you, if you were hired to consult a mountain biker or a mountain bike team, how would you have them go out and test a tire, a mountain bike tire, or tires, I should say, for efficiency, for speed?
I think your best fit here is the Chung virtual elevation testing, right? Chung method that we talk about a lot on our other show. There's a software you can download. It's free. It's called Golden Cheetah. And it really allows you to, virtual elevation is this like most fascinating thing. It allows you to take really kind of crude, imperfect data and actually find some really quite precise measurements of CDA and CRR when both of those are unknown. And so essentially what you're doing is you're making iterative guesses about one until something like the CRR becomes flat in this big calculation. And so what you really need is a place where you can do some laps on a surface that is more or less the surface that you're racing on, or as similar as possible. So, in an ideal world, I think of, Olympic events, and we have done off-road testing, cyclocross, those sorts of things. Like if we have access to the course beforehand, we just use the course as our lap. But you really just need a couple of laps of a course where the rider is going to maintain their position as much as possible so that you can try to have a fixed CDA, right? You're trying to be as consistently aerodynamic as possible. And that's going to let us hone in on finding this CRR, or rolling resistance coefficient, value. And so, this is a method we use with tons of teams and athletes also to test for pressure because it is sensitive enough to find that impedance breakpoint pressure if you're moving it. So, maybe pick a pressure that you would normally ride and ride 5 PSI above, 5 PSI below, or sorry, in mountain bike terms, like 2 PSI above or 2 below, to try to, ferret out if one of those is different. But your optimal Chung course shape would be sort of a saddle, and you need to be able to complete the lap without braking, because using the brakes, introduces a whole bunch of stuff that we're not solving for, a whole bunch of uncertainties. So, if you've got here in Indiana, we're lucky because there's roundabouts everywhere. I think we have the roundabout capital of the world, Carmel, Indiana. And so you can actually do some really interesting Chung courses on various surfaces by connecting roundabouts. Or just riding city blocks, or there's a ton of ways to do it. So
here's the rub at Leadville. It's a multi-surface event, and you've seen this at Roubaix, your experience at Roubaix, where they're riding cobbles, riding pavement. At Leadville, we have crushed granite, we have rocky conditions, we have loose over hard, we have packed dirt, and we have pavement. So how do we balance out those surfaces in our testing?
I would take the course map. We do this with Roubaix. Take the course map, break it down by percentage of surface. Because it is one of the things about Roubaix that, until you ride it, you don't really think about. But, they're not all the Arenberg forest, right? There's like the Arenberg and the Carrefour de l'Arbre at the end. The Arenberg's the worst. The Carrefour's probably second. But I mean, some of them are really not that bad. And so, you need to know, like, okay, what do we, I would say too, what the type of racing you're planning is probably a little bit different. A lot of what we're doing in road racing sometimes is saying, hey, this year it's raining. And so like you need to be at the front and we're going to attack in the Arenberg forest. And so you want to optimize everything for that moment of attack. An event like Leadville, in my mind, at least, I think of it as more like a time trial, right? We're trying to like find the shortest overall time. It's not, Fatty's going to try to drop Hottie at mile, 73 or whatever. So I would look at it by percentages, and you're going to want to start by optimizing in the direction of your highest percentage surface. And then I would say for how much pavement is it?
Fatty, what do you got on pavement there? 30% maybe?
I was going to put it closer to 20%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because that really is probably your easiest one. I wouldn't even bother to optimize on pavement because you're not going to use that number anyway. But I might take the others and say, my worst surface is here, maybe look at 2 or 3 tires. It just depends. I don't have tons. I mean, I look at bicyclerollingresistance.com and some of the other independent places that do rolling resistance, and you can see, 4, 5, 10 watts between tires. And I will say that the data from BRR is not going to be data that you get in the real world. Your real world numbers will be bigger, but the trends are consistent. If he says a tire is 4 watts faster on a smooth drum, it's going to also be faster on crushed granite or crushed gravel or whatever you're riding. So that's a heck of a starting place. I might take the top tires from his list and then, look at testing between them. But start with your, yeah.
Oh, that's actually quite helpful because I've been to that site and I've looked over that tire list, and it's the interesting thing is we've been running a poll too on the participants page, and I don't see many of the tires on that list showing up on our poll results, which is so maybe folks want to look at bicycle rolling resistance and just give it a quick glance and go, well, maybe I do consider this or this brand or this model before I make my final choice, and then take it out for a little field testing. If you're totally into this level of marginal gains for your Leadville Trail 100. One last question, Josh. Another thing mountain bikers love to do, and I don't know if you see this in many other disciplines on the road or otherwise, is we love to run different modeled and sometimes different make tires front and rear, and often different size tires front and rear. Are we only as fast as the slowest of the two, or how do those balance out? And what should we be aware of when we're doing that?
Well, first of all, the different brands of tire front and rear I struggle with. I mean, the marginal gainer in me sees some possible potential here, but the aesthetic side of me is like cringing. Do you mix tan wall and black wall? I mean, would you do that? That just hurts my soul thinking about it.
Never.
Wow, man, I actually just posed the question to myself. If I knew it were faster, would I do it? I don't know if I would. I would. I probably would.
Yes, you would.
Yeah. No, for sure.
But we will run different style of knobbies front and rear, and different sizes front and rear. Yeah.
You're essentially, I mean, you're like by Chung method, the CRR value that you're going to get is going to be some blend of the front and the rear tire, right? So you are not as slow as the slowest tire, but you're also not then as fast as the faster one. So you're going to be somewhere in the middle. And I would think from a tread pattern perspective, like if we were to do some testing and say, oh, this tire's, considerably faster than that tire, but this tire doesn't have, say, enough tread to, get me up this key climb in the event if it's wet, then you probably want to bias towards the tread. I mean, certainly we don't have we don't really have any mountain bike tire test data on our test machine here, but we definitely see with gravel tires, I mean, typically the more tread, the slower the tire is a good way to think of it because there's just more material there. There's more squirm. If the tread actually forces the casing to deflect more under its location. But at the same time, I also know that in certain conditions, like you're not going to stay upright without it. So we don't want to, we don't want to be 5 seconds faster and then on our butt, 10 different times in the event. To look at that, I would say the other piece of this, or other, I guess, directional way to look at it is, especially if you look at the bicycle rolling resistance site as starters, there are certainly companies that have technologies that are faster than other companies' technologies. And so, like, if your tire is not on that list, you might find, or maybe there's a version of your tire that's, I think, I don't have it in front of me, but I know like Continental has some really phenomenal rubber encasing technology right now. And a bunch of the tires at the top of that list are Continental. And I think it's like the Speed Speed King, Speed. So there's a number of them. They all have speed in the name. And, and I think that might be another way to look at it, like, well, the tire I want to ride isn't there, but it's a speed something. You're probably in pretty good shape, because that's, we see that, like the black chili compound is another really solid technology from them, that, the black chili rubber is just faster than the non-black chili rubber. So, kind of look at it from that direction.
Yeah, well, for folks listening, obviously there's much more to consider with your tire choice than just speed. I mean, obviously you have flat protection you're worried about. Grip, which Josh alluded to there, is also a consideration, which is going to affect your overall speed. So while the bicycle rolling resistance list is a great place to start, that's a speed list. You got to balance out your other things as you head into Leadville. But in the end, if you're down to a few tires and you want to kind of figure out, okay, what's the fastest one? And is that the one I want to go out and field test that thing, like Josh said, using the Chung method, if you get up to speed on it. And again, it's not that difficult to use if you've got a little computing skills and a little time, and it's a great way to do it. And again, try to replicate that section of the course. I'm thinking, Fatty, like Pipeline is like that area where if you can replicate that wherever you are in the States, that loose over hard surface, where you are trying to lay down some time, that's probably a great Chung method course to try and use. Josh, thanks for joining us. Thanks for a little tire guidance as we head to this epic event we call Leadville.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
All right, pretty deep stuff there from Josh, and we get it, the Chung method and testing courses or finding test courses. It may be too much for some, but like Josh said, if you are on the fence, take a look at the bicyclerollingresistance.com site and see what tires are on that site, and if your tire matches up with some of their rankings there, and then try and make a choice from there.
And you can also go to our survey on the Facebook participants page and see if what you are considering matches up with what other racers are going with.
Yeah, the survey was a lot of fun, Fatty, and we'll give you a few more highlights from it. Like we said, the Maxxis and its Icon were the clear favorite. Payson's Aspen was a close second. Conti riders love that Race King. Vittoria's votes were mostly for the Mezcal, and we see it out on the Great Divide mountain bike race right now, in fact, so it's a favorite with endurance mountain bikers. Schwalbe was evenly divided between the Racing Ralph, Racing Ray, Rocket Ron, and Thunderbird. Now, I've been on the Racing Ralph, and it is a fast tire, but I think many Schwalbe vets will tell you to make sure you get it with an extra layer of protection because it can be a little flat happy. The Kenda Booster was kind of a new one to me. I'd not heard much of it before, but I got a few votes. The Head Scratcher was Specialized. Now, the brand finished pretty low on our survey. The Fast Track is still a favorite with those who love Specialized. But that Renegade, I can tell you, is a fast tire, and I did see it on the brand's sponsored athletes at Sea Otter. Another huge deal with tires, of course, is inflation. The right tire with the wrong inflation defeats the purpose of this entire discussion we're having. But just like with tires, you might be asking, where do I start?
Yeah, the answer is very easy for me. I go to the Envy website. Under the Learn drop-down menu is the tire pressure page. Envy has several spreadsheets of tire pressure data, including one for mountain bikes. There are two columns to focus on. There's the rider weight and the application. Rider weight is up to you to figure out, of course, and for application, we'd say take a look at that M525 column, or right underneath that is the XC application. Then pick your size. Work down that column until you reach your weight. For my Ardent 235 tires, my weight range of 160 to 180, it says I should be riding at 17 to 21 pounds up front. I personally inflate to 20, so I'm right in there, and 18 to 22 in back. I generally inflate to 21, so I'm right there in the sweet spot. I used this exact same chart for my wife, the Hammer, and I put her at 18 in the front, 19 in the back. And she and I have both been very happy with how this works for us.
Yeah, my number's pretty close to yours. I'm 20 PSI up front, 24 rear. Now, those numbers are just starting points, though, folks. Trail conditions and your riding style will dictate adjustments. If your trail, for instance, is firm and grippy, or you do a lot of jumps, then you can actually increase those pressures. Probably not a lot of jumping in Leadville, but you get the point there. It means if you're going to find a harder surface, or you're going to pound your tires a little harder, then you can up the pressure a little bit. If you find that your ride is too harsh, then you can actually drop things by a few PSI.
Yeah, remember that pressure calculators like Envy's are a starting point. A little field testing is always very important, and don't be afraid to adjust, even mid-ride.
To check out Envy's tire pressure spreadsheet and fast carbon wheel sets, head to Envy, that's ENVE.com.
Okay, on to part 2 of our tire special. We're going to start with our survey. We wanted to know how many Leadville racers plan to run tire inserts. 250 surveyed, only 10 said they planned to have them for the race. Most said they would run sealant only, and 4 riders, 4 out of 250, are planning to use tubes.
Tubes, wow, that's a thing still, okay.
Tubes.
Yep. Inserts are gaining traction in the endurance world, which is why we decided to include them in our tire service and explore them a little bit. A number of front runners at Unbound this year revealed that they had turned to inserts in hopes of preventing flats. And inserts have mostly been something for the hard-charging trail and enduro rider, but the companies that make them now have products for us endurance types. So we got with the OG of tire inserts to find out more. Dan Hallida is VP of Cushcore, and we caught up with him at Sea Otter. We're in the Cushcore booth. There's lots of tire inserts out there now, Dan, but Cushcore is probably the brand that comes to mind first when you start talking about inserts. What's not happened to date so far, I think, is that the endurance mountain bike rider, the person out there for 8, 9, 10, 12 hours, probably has not given this a lot of thought yet, the tire insert, because of weight. They just don't want to carry the other weight.
Sure.
Tell me why somebody should, even in a long event, go ahead and try putting an insert in their tire.
Yeah, there's a few reasons. I mean, Cushcore primarily was designed to be a performance enhancement device. Sure, it helps prevent flats, and sure, it helps protect your rims, but that's almost a side benefit in our mind. So it does a few things. If I could show you, but it wraps tightly around the rim and essentially clamps the bead to the rim. So you're not going to burp. And then the other thing, it's part of our patent. Has a wedge shape. So the wedge pushes against the tire sidewall. So that helps alleviate that tire roll and squirm, especially when you're rolling with lower tire pressure. And lower tire pressure, as we know, gives you more compliant tread patch, which is traction, and a more comfortable ride, right? But it's easy to get a flat and easy to ding. So Cushcore will do that. But that sidewall pressure also, basically the foam insert becomes a unit with the tire casing, and so it dampens vibration. And you literally can feel it. Even the XC1, which weighs only 140 grams, will dampen the vibration. You can feel it in your hands. And, on a long ride like that, having the insurance for one, and then the performance improvement for two, and then the third thing that we had an independent lab called Wheel Energy. They test all kinds of tires and wheels, a lot of bicycle industry stuff. And what they found on a rough surface, Cushcore actually reduces rolling energy. So you get a more efficient ride. And the reason that is because the Cushcore will dampen those impacts at the tire. When, mountain bike suspension has to compress and rebound, that's taking the wheel off the ground, and you're losing that forward momentum. But with Cushcore, it absorbs those smaller impacts at the ground and keeps the tire rolling forward, maintaining momentum. So that's I think it's contrary to most people's belief, but that's what's going on there.
Now, I still put sealant in, right? If I'm running tubeless ready, I put sealant in.
Yeah. So it's designed to be used with tubeless tires and wheels, obviously, but and we still recommend using the same amount of sealant, and that's mainly for if you get a pinhole in the top of the tire casing.
And what about my PSI? If I run Cushcore or any insert, do I drop pressure?
Yeah, typically you would. Of course, it depends on what your starting point is, how far you would drop. So, but knowing the fact that your rim is protected and you got that sidewall stability, you can definitely run a little less tire pressure. If you're running like 30, you could definitely drop to like 24. If you're running 20, maybe you go to 18, and it just depends.
Right, so it's not exactly linear, right? Again, a lot of folks, especially in the Leadville 100, are going to be counting grams. That's what they do. They got to carry this weight around for 8 to 10 hours. Is it your argument or your belief that you got to look at the bigger picture here, what your gains your losses and total them up that way?
Sure. I mean, that like I said, I mean, yes, you're adding some mass to the wheel. It's not much. When you actually feel what 140 grams feels like, it's not much. But I get the weight concern. However, that improved rolling efficiency and the kind of let's say confidence that you're not going to have an issue with your tires. And then depending on what people are running, you can also offset some of that weight with a lighter casing tire.
If I do get a flat that the sealant can't plug and I got to get in there and put a tube in, what kind of extra step might I be up against then?
Yeah, in a race situation, you'd probably want to pull that out. But I would say most flats are either a puncture where you could repair it with a plug kit, or even worst case is a sidewall slash. And what we recommend is carrying. Park Tool makes this product called a tire boot. It's basically a patch, and a self-adhesive patch. And the instructions show you installing on the inside of the tire, but we've had success with just out in the field installing on the outside of the tire, air it up, and you're on your way. And on top of that, you're less likely to get flats with Cushcore.
So, bottom line here is, if you were racing in the Leadville 100, I'm sure, since you have a Cushcore T-shirt on, you'd have the XC insert in there.
Yeah. I mean, of course. I mean, I swallow the Kool-Aid. This is we launched 5 years ago, and I've been there from day one. I'm the marketing manager, but I truly believe in the product and use the product. And I mean, it's a different style race, but like I'd like to mention. We've won the last two. Riders on Cushcore have won the last two BC bike races, which is, you would think people are very concerned with weight, but they also like the insurance and the performance enhancements.
Mm-hmm. And is that what you're seeing too? Are you seeing the product show up in more endurance type events? I mean, obviously you folks went with a gravel insert now too. That's got to be telling you something. Yeah.
And the gravel one took like a minute for people to realize it, but everybody that tries it on a gravel bike says it's a game changer. Yeah. And of course, we know in XC racing scene, weight is a concern, and some type of racing, the tracks are just so smooth that they're not worried about it. But like I said, it does these other benefits that people might not realize, like the vibration damping, and the cornering improvement, and the rolling resistance improvement.
Well, I want to thank you for explaining Cushcore to us. Again, I don't know. I can't see the insides of tires at the Leadville Trail 100.
Yeah.
I'll have to defer to my listeners, and they'll probably tell us, I'm going to run Cushcore. I'm not going to run an insert. But
sure.
I think like a lot of things we're seeing that we had preconceptions about dropper posts and full suspension bikes and long events. I mean, this is the type of product that's going to slowly but surely win people over.
Yeah. I mean, that we always use that analogy of the dropper post. Like when that first launched, the resistance was, why would I add weight? It's complicated, it's expensive. But now you can't find a decent mountain bike without one.
Some interesting thoughts there about using inserts and the insurance they provide. If a flat tire is a deal breaker for a rider, like the time it might take to recover could ruin your day, then inserts could be some good insurance.
Yeah, but let's hear from someone who has no skin in the game. Here's Payson again on tire inserts, his experience, and his choice when it comes to Leadville. Inserts are becoming a bigger and bigger deal now, especially anytime you're expecting any kind of impact. But the question becomes, okay, am I cool with a weight penalty in a longer event? What's your take on inserts? Are you an insert user? Do you like them in longer events? How do you go down?
Depends on the race. I'd say it's much more terrain dependent rather than duration or even how much climbing there is. So, for example, at the Marathon National Championships last year, we had this crazy rocky course, rockiest marathon race I've ever done, and I absolutely ran inserts there. For something like Leadville, I don't yet feel like it's worth the weight penalty. That said, I will be running inserts in an increasing number of gravel events this year. But for now, I haven't messed with inserts for Leadville.
You're confident, obviously, in your line choices there. For some people, inserts might might be a good thing, right?
Absolutely.
Could save their day. I mean,
100%.
based on your experience with them, like
It
you
depends
might
on your
advise.
goals.
Yeah.
It depends on your goals. I mean, for someone like me, time, the difference between third and fourth place, being on the podium or not being on the podium, can be a very small margin. And so weight considerations are very significant. For someone that's just looking to finish, or maybe someone that's hoping to finish, say, under 9 hours, whatever it is, and having a smooth run at it where you don't have to work on your bike, you don't have to put a plug in, hit your tire with the CO2, that sort of thing. An insert could be a great option. I would definitely recommend practicing with them first because they are a very different ride feel, and also getting a feel for how much lower tire pressure you can run, because that is a big benefit.
Do you find with the inserts, I've heard this, that they help dampen vibration, like they'll make the ride quality a little better? You'll have a less fatiguing day if you're running inserts. Do you find that true?
Yeah, because you can run lower tire pressure. So, typically in the 225 Aspen, I'll run about 20 PSI. If I were running an insert, I could easily go down to 18.
Thanks again to Payson McElveen for his technical advice. We have another tech episode coming up soon. We will be calling on Payson for more insight and expertise. As far as inserts go, Hottie, if Leadville had the flat rate of Unbound, I could see maybe using inserts. The choice is obviously a lot easier at Unbound. Lots of flats, less climbing, so the weight penalty may be worth it. It's a harder choice at Leadville for me. So far, I'm waiting for the technology to maybe get a little further along before I try them out.
But man, there are some spots on the Leadville course where inserts could save the day. The top of Powerline in the morning, coming down the Goat Trail, and the Sugarloaf descent headed home. And if you plan on riding aggressive in those areas, inserts may be worth your consideration.
Yeah, well, I hope that we could dispel some of the myths that are surrounding tires and Leadville. It is a tough subject, and one without absolutes. It's very important. You got to do your own research on it, right? Again, thanks to everyone who responded to the survey, and watch this space for another one coming up. Our friends at The Feed have a great way to figure out what to put in your bottles, and they recommend looking at the length of the workout or ride to make that decision. There's basically 3 categories: rides or workouts that are up to an hour, 60 minutes to 2 hours, and finally, your longer rides. For each of those categories, The Feed suggests adjusting the number of calories you are getting from your bottles.
For those shorter rides, using something like Noon Sport tabs will cover you. Noon Sport has just 10 calories. The goal with 1 hour rides, especially if there's intensity, is just to stay hydrated. By the time you need calories, the ride will be over and you can eat a sandwich or whatever. For that ride up to 2 hours, The Feed suggests something like Scratch Sport Hydration Mix. 80 calories of easy drinking, all natural ingredients. Keep a gel or 2 in your pocket, especially if you rather went into the ride with an empty stomach.
Yeah, and then for the very long sessions, the big rides, go with Martin. You can pick either the 160 or 320 calorie packets, depending on whether you might want to eat a bar or other food during your rides. This is what we love about The Feed. Not only do they have all the nutrition that you need, but they also have great advice on how to put it into action.
Claim your $80 in annual credit at thefeed.com/Leadville. Register your email and verify your phone number, then spend your first Feed credit of $20 right away.
Let's go ahead and wrap up this episode. Hottie and I are on social media. I kind of like Twitter, and it's where I go with the handle Fat Cyclist. Big surprise. Hottie is more into Instagram, likes his photos. You can follow him at Michael Houghton. Strong recommendation, do not search for the term hottie. The results will not be what you expect. Well, they might be what you expect. You might even like them, but it won't be hottie that you find. I'm just saying. Of course, we're both on the Leadville 100 mountain bike page. And if you want to have a conversation, then head over to our Slack channel. You'll find a link to it over at leadville.fm/Slack.
If you like this show, go to wherever you listen and give us a 5-star rating and write a review to see all the ways you can find the show. It's leadville.fm.
And finally, tell your friends about our little show. It's the ultimate compliment, and we've noted before we are compliment hungry. Even if your friends don't race the Leadville 100, tell them. They will thank you, and we will too.
Good luck in your riding, racing, recovery, and good luck with your tires. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you at 6th and Harrison.